in many other ways, but it gets lost a little bit sometimes. Bishop, you know that. It gets lost. We've done so much, and a lot of the things that we've done that we're very proud of gets lost. Like we got criminal justice reform passed, and they've been trying to do it for many years, and they haven't been able to get passed. We secured permanent and record-setting funding for HBCUs, that's historically black colleges and universities. It's all done. We created tens of thousands of jobs with opportunity zones. Tim Scott, and we had a great senator from South Carolina that many of you know. He came with an idea, and I thought it was a great idea, and we got it done. A lot of people said that could never happen, but nobody thought it would be successful like it is. Tens of thousands of jobs and investment in communities where that money wouldn't go. And we achieved the lowest black unemployment in the history of our country. And we achieved the lowest black unemployment in the history of our country. We'll get it back again soon. It'll happen soon. That'll happen very soon. In recent days, there's been vigorous discussion about how to ensure fairness, equality, and justice for all of our people. Unfortunately, there are some trying to stoke division and to push an extreme agenda which we won't go for, that will produce only more poverty, more crime, more suffering. This includes radical efforts to defund, dismantle, and disband the police. They want to get rid of the police forces. They actually want to get rid of it. And that's what they'd do, and that's where they'd go. And you know that because at the top position, there's not going to be much leadership. There's not much leadership left. Instead, we have to go the opposite way. We must invest more energy and resources in police training and recruiting and community engagement. We have to respect our police. We have to take care of our police. They're protecting us. And if they're allowed to do their job, they'll do a great job. And you always have a bad apple no matter where you go. You have bad apples. And there are not too many of them. And I can tell you there are not too many of them in the police department. We all know a lot of members of the police. I was listening today, and a friend of mine was on, very important person, said some of the best people he's ever met are policemen, law enforcement people. And they're taking care of people that in many cases they never even met before. And at great danger, at great risk. They get shot for no reason whatsoever other than they're wearing blue. They get knifed. You saw that the other night. It was a horrible thing. But there is no opportunity without safety. In Chicago, 48 people were shot and 18 people were killed in one day, Sunday, May 31st. Think of that. 48 people shot, 18 people killed. You don't hear about it too much. Every child should be able to grow up in a safe community, free from violence and fear. They've taken a lot of the police protection away in Chicago, and they have great, great police in Chicago. I know Chicago very well, but they're not allowed to do what they can do better than anybody. They could do the job very easily. Americans are good and virtuous people. We have to work together to confront bigotry and prejudice wherever they appear, but we'll make no progress and heal no wounds by falsely labeling tens of millions of decent Americans as racist or bigots. We have to get everybody together. We have to be in the same path, I think, Pastor. If we don't do that, we have problems, and we'll do that. We'll do it. I think we're going to do it very easily. It'll go quickly, and it'll go very easily. We have so many different elements of strength in this country. We have such potential in this country. We have the greatest potential. We have the greatest country in the world. But we get off subject. We start thinking about things that don't matter or don't matter much.
Says the king of distraction.
Important things we don't even discuss, but we're here to discuss some very important things today.
Hey, Josh. Hey, TG. Hey, Kim.
Make false charges, and they're trying to distract
hey,
from
JC.
their own failed records. They have some very bad records. And these are usually the ones that cause the problems or can't solve the problems. These are the same politicians who shipped our jobs away.
Hey, Plum.
Tremendous advantage of all Americans, but African-American middle class.
Corporations shipped our jobs away.
That wealth and that money and those jobs went to China and other countries, and they get trapped. They get trapped. They get trapped in a government morass. They get trapped in bad government schools. So I'm going to be announcing 4 steps to build safety.
He's in charge of those government schools, by the way.
First, we're aggressively pursuing economic development in minority communities. We're doing it very powerfully. We've done it with opportunity zones, but we're going to go above that. At the heart of this effort is increasing access to capital for small businesses, and that's with minority owners in black communities. And we're going to get it done, and it should have been done a long time ago. It's been very difficult.
You've been there for 3 years.
Difficult for some people.
You had 2 years of full Republican control. Could have gotten it done then.
Healthcare disparities, including addressing chronic conditions and investing substantial sums in minority-serving medical institutions. We have medical institutions in some areas of our country that are a disgrace.
Oh.
I was going to say not up to standard. They're much worse than not up to standard. They're a disgrace.
Are
Take
they?
care of it. Third, we're working
that would
to
be the
finalize
urban
an
hospitals,
executive
I'm
order
guessing?
that will encourage police departments nationwide to meet the most current professional standards for the use of force, including tactics for de-escalation. Also, we'll encourage pilot programs that allow social workers to join certain law enforcement officers so that they work together. We'll take care of our police. We're not defunding police. If anything, we're going the other route. We're going to make sure that our police are well trained, perfectly trained, they have the best equipment.
They're not now? Again, you've been there for 3 years. This is not a new problem.
Some of the things that we have heard, because I know a lot of the people in the audience and they're professionals and what they do, and they're successful people, and we're hearing things that are not even thinkable. I've never even heard of this before last week.
It's something we've all heard of. What is it?
It started about a week ago, where I heard they want to close up all police forces. That's what their attack on a very liberal governor in the state of Washington is. We want the police force closed.
Has anyone else heard of this?
Sort of bring a little money into something else. They want it actually closed.
Reformed, reopened, rejuvenated, not closed.
What do you do? Whether you're white, black, or anybody else, I mean, what do? You're dialing, and there's somebody breaking into a house, and it happens to be a violent person. There are violent people around, Pastor. Even you will admit that, right? We want to think the best, but you have some very
like the
violent
pastor might
people.
Deny it.
And when they're breaking into your house at 12 o'clock in the evening, and you're sitting there and you don't have a police force, they're actually talking
Burglars
about
breaking in at midnight.
not having a police force. Well, that's not happening with us. We're going to have stronger police forces because that's what you need. In Minneapolis, they went through 3 nights of hell, and then I was insistent on having the National Guard go in and do their
He
work.
didn't call the National Guard
It
in.
was like a miracle. It just everything
He
stopped.
can't. The governor
And I'll
called
never
the
forget
National
the
Guard in.
scene. It's not supposed to be a beautiful scene, but to me it was. After you watch policemen running out of a police precinct, and it wasn't their fault. They wanted to
Also, do away
they
with
weren't allowed
money
to do anything.
and
It wasn't
sugarless
really their
gum.
fault, but they were running down the street. They weren't allowed to do what they're trained to do, and they took over the precinct. They essentially burned it down.
That's an interesting point, JC, but open for argument. Is midnight the evening?
Renovation, if you're lucky. And it was a very sad thing. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. But
Like what? I missed it. I can't rewind to
very
C-SPAN.
proud of the fact that I called. I said, I'm sorry, we have to have them go in. And they went in, and it was like a knife cutting butter right through. Boom. I'll never forget. You saw the scene on that road, wherever it may be, in the city, Minneapolis. They were lined up. Boom. They just walked straight. And yes, there was some tear gas and probably some other things, and the crowd dispersed, and they went through. By the end of that evening, and it was a short evening, everything was fine, and you didn't hear too much about that location.
It was a short evening. It was shorter than the other evenings.
Other locations, and the same thing would happen. As an example, Seattle
Yeah.
would be so easy to solve.
Okay, what's going on? Because
So
I'm
easy
here.
to solve. We have a governor here of a great state. It's called Texas. He would solve it very easily.
He knows the name of the state.
As would other of your political leaders, including your lieutenant governor. They would solve it very easily. It's
The lieutenant governor
a
who
lot of
said
it's
he'd
common
lay down
sense.
his
I
life
don't even
for the
think it's
economy.
courage. I think it's probably more courageous the other way, because I wouldn't want to be doing it the other way. It's very unsafe. So I just want to tell you that we're working on a lot of different elements having to do with law, order, safety, comfort, control. But we want safety. We want compassion. We want everything. What happened
Everything.
2 weeks ago was a disgrace when you see that. What happened on numerous occasions over the last 2 weeks, people were killed. A number of people were killed, and it was very, very terrible and very, very unfair. A number of them were police officers. And it was a
But
very
George
unfair situation.
Floyd
We don't want to see that.
killed for a pack of
And
cigarettes. Do you want to
with
mention that?
strength, you wouldn't even have that. They wouldn't be in a position to do the kind of damage that they've done. They've destroyed people. They've destroyed businesses. They've destroyed African-American owned small businesses. That
African
hopefully they will come back.
Americans.
We're providing funding for a lot of small businesses, and hopefully we'll be able to get everybody online and get funding to be able to open up their stores and their small businesses again.
Oh, hey, Marcy.
But we're working to finalize
Hey,
an
Master.
executive order that will encourage police departments nationwide to
Centaur.
meet the most current professional standards of force. And that means force, but force with compassion. But if
Use
you're
of
going
force,
to have
but-
to really do a job, if somebody's really bad, you're going to have to do it with real strength, real power.
That's what we're going
And I
for.
said, and
More,
people said, "Oh, I
more
don't know if I
power,
like
more
that
strength.
expression." I said, we have to dominate the streets. You can't let that happen, what happened in New York City.
Read the
damage they've
country.
done. You have to dominate the streets. And I was criticized for that statement. I made the statement, we have to dominate the street. And they said, oh, that's such a terrible thing. Well, guess what? You know who dominated the streets? People that you don't want to dominate the streets. And look at the damage they did. So I'll stick with that. And I think most of the people in this room, maybe every person in this room will stick with that.
You know who
We're doing
dominated
it
the
with
streets is the
compassion.
National
If you
Guard
think
and the
about
Park
it, we're
Police when they
dominating the
gassed
street
American
with
citizens who
compassion
were
because we're
protesting
saving
peacefully.
lives, and we're
They
saving
dominated that
businesses, we're
shit.
saving families
Tear
from being
gas,
wiped out
pepper
after working
bullets.
hard for 20 and 30 years. I saw the one woman, she worked 35 years building a store, and in one night it was totally wiped out.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. And fourth, we're
Yeah.
renewing our call on Congress to finally enact school choice now.
That's
School
what it.
choice is a big
That's
deal.
what would save George Floyd. Not reforming the
Because
police.
access to education
Charter
is the civil rights
schools
issue of our
to
time,
take
and I've
money
heard that
away
for
from the public
the
schools.
last, I would say, year, but it really is. It's a
GOP.
civil rights issue of our
GOP.
time. When you could have children go to a school where
Whoa.
their parents want them to go. And it creates competition, and other schools fight harder because all of a sudden they say, wow, we're losing it, we have to fight harder, it gets better. So many different ways. But there are groups of people against that. You have unions against it, you have others against it.
The
and
public,
they're not against it
the
for
people
right
going to
reasons.
the public
They're against
schools.
it for a lot of the wrong reasons, and we're going to get that straight. Now, we've done a lot of it. We've had tremendous success with choice. We had choice
Betsy
in a lot of ways.
DeVos
We
has.
also have choice in the military.
Makes
You know,
millions
before I
off
came
choice.
here, the vets would wait online, Pastor. They'd be waiting. It wouldn't be acceptable to you. I know it wouldn't be acceptable to the bishop. I know it's not going to be acceptable
Hey, Rich.
to you. They'd wait for 4 or 5 weeks to get online, a vet, where they were sick. They were feeling badly, and they'd get online, and they'd say, there's a 6-day wait, sir. There's a 2-week wait. There's a 1-month wait. And you'd have people online that weren't very ill,
In
and they'd
line.
be terminally ill before
East
they
Coasters.
got to see a doctor. They'd die. And for years and years, they've been trying to get veterans' choice. That
And they
means
passed it in
if you can't get
2014.
to a
Thanks,
doctor
Obama.
reasonably quickly, you go outside, you go to a local doctor.
He's about to say
around
thanks,
where you
Obama,
live,
right here. This is what he's going to.
and
Ready?
the government pays the bill. And by the way, it sounds expensive. It's very cheap by comparison.
I know,
It's
just
actually
say thanks,
much better.
Obama.
Now, most importantly, we take care of our vets. By
Yeah.
far most importantly. But
Yeah, and we did in 2014. They got choice. Thanks, Obama. Say it.
But it's one of those many cases where it's actually less costly and better. Sometimes you'll see a building, it costs less money than another building that costs more because the one that built the one that costs more looks better.
Yeah.
The one that's cheaper looks better. They say, how much more did you spend for that building? Actually, we spent less. You can do that. It's called, you have to know what you're doing. If you know what you're
That's
doing.
what it's called. You have to know what
It's
you're
only
doing.
good for the real estate people in here, of which there are plenty, by the way. So I just want to thank everybody.
And Obama.
This is a
You forgot to thank
tremendous
Obama
place. It's a
for the
great
veterans.
city. It's a great, great
No?
city, and with tremendous people and tremendous pride. And I say the same for the state of Texas. You know, your governor came to me and he
What about
said,
Seattle?
"We
Are
had
we
a bad
tremendous
hurricane
people?"
2 years ago. I gave so much money to Texas, more. He kept coming, more. How about here? How about So finally, you know, though, we took good care of Texas. Is that right? We took such good care of Texas. They were looking for the next hurricane. They said, when's the next hurricane?
Wait, I thought
they
Texas
had a big
was
one,
giving
and
money to the blue states.
They say
But
you
no,
had
we're-
the
we're
largest
giving money
water
to-
dump ever. It just didn't stop. It came in, and you thought it was gone, and then it went back out, and it reloaded, right? And it happened 3 times. And
David, you're
governor
blowing
came
my
and he wanted
mind.
to build a
Cheaper things cost
barrier
less?
so that water would hit the barrier, wouldn't come into certain parts of Texas.
Yeah.
Called me, said, "Sir, I just have
New
one more
Orleans.
request." This is after we gave $28 billion. So $28 billion. I mean, we watch the pennies, but when it comes to Texas, we don't watch them too closely, okay?
Oh, so we
And he
just
said,
open the floodgates for Texas.
Governor
No pun
Abbott, he
intended,
said,
Houston.
Just one more request, and it's a very small one, sir. We have a way of building a wall.
This is how you
It
build a
goes up
wall.
and down. It moves with the tides. I said, that sounds expensive to me. It moves with the tides, and it's not a lot of money. Could I ask you to do me one small favor and approve it? I said, how much is it? Sir, it's only $10 billion. And I said, start working on it, right? I said, start working on it, because we can do things
Joanna.
to get rid of those. You get hit pretty hard here. They get hit pretty hard here, don't they? Were you affected very much when you had, during the hurricanes itself?
We had a lot of people who were displaced that came to this area.
Yeah. Well, we took good care of everybody. So I just want to
Orangey,
say
you're doing
this
a
is
heck
one
of
my
a
favorite
job.
places. I know we're doing very well here. During the last process, they kept saying
Biden is
"Texas
leading in
is
Texas
too close
currently."
to call. And friends of mine in Texas say, it's not too close to call. You're going to win in a landslide. And I said, well, they keep saying. Well, we had one man got on television, actually, and he said, I don't know where you come from, but I don't think this is too close to call. I think he's going to win
not
by
the
a
size
lot.
of the
And we
wall.
won by a lot. It was 8 o'clock, and the polls were closed, and they said, Donald Trump has won the state of Texas. And he said it simultaneously, so. And we're doing good here again. But, you know, one of the things I have to say, because this is big oil territory, I think
Pet
we've
Rock
done
2020.
a fantastic job with bringing back the oil in a rapid fashion. That looked pretty bad. That looked
It's at
pretty bad.
$36 a barrel. Wait,
You had a couple
hold
of
on.
hours where if you bought a barrel of oil, you bought it for $37, as if they gave you 37, okay?
No, they
There's
didn't.
never
That's
been a
not
thing like that
how
ever. Now I
math.
see that it's getting close to $40 a barrel, and you're back in business, and we got
40.
it done fast, and we got Russia together with Saudi Arabia, and they cut production, and they got it back fast, and we're very, very proud of it.
Yeah, U.S. blends of oil
The
were down
supply
almost
changed
9%
rapidly
today.
with COVID-19 or whatever you want to call it. I'd never heard so many names. You have about 30 names you can call this thing. I call it the plague from China. The plague.
The plague. Did you
not
guys
good.
hear that? He called
And
it
it's
the
not
plague.
good, and it's could have been stopped.
Who are
It
these
could have been
people?
Stopped in China, but they decided not to do that, and we'll have to figure that one out, won't we? So I just want to thank
Well,
everybody
it's
very
a
much for
virus.
being here. This is a very spectacular place, and I want to introduce Attorney General Barr and Secretary Carson to say a few words, along with the Surgeon General, who has been a real young star
Good
in
point,
the
Centaur.
administration. And please, if I could, Bill, take over, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, oil's currently at $36 a barrel. U.S. crude fell 9% today. Those prices are not sustainable, especially
Thank
if
you,
you're talking
Mr.
about heavy
President,
crude.
and thank you for convening this discussion. And I'd like to thank the many impressive leaders, civic leaders, religious leaders, and colleagues from law enforcement who are here. That ghastly spectacle in Minneapolis was really jarring to the whole nation, and it forced us to confront and think about, reflect on longstanding issues in our nation. Those issues obviously relate to the relationship between law enforcement and the African American community. But just to step back a little and take a broader
By the way, we haven't heard from Fauci officially in a month.
about how do we achieve
Longer than that. Dr. Scarf hasn't spoken in a month.
African American communities, all communities. And one of the reasons I'm proud to serve in this administration is
See you,
because
Sherry.
I think the president is moving forward on the critical.
Yeah, on this, I really should have just done it after it was all over, because I don't know if everyone's going to speak here, but sorry. I could sign off and come back later and just fast forward through most of the nonsense. Well, actually, the nonsense is Trump, so we're not really.
Second, education. I think Condi Rice said a few years ago, it's the civil rights issue of our time, because without a good education, we are not allowing our young people to seize their opportunities and pursue their dreams. And as the president mentioned, it's only by empowering parents and giving them the power to choose.
I heard Fauci was going to get a new TV series, though, David, with Joni Ernst, the senator from Iowa. It's going to be called Joni Loves Fauci. It's a spin-off.
To make momentary sacrifices for later gain.
This is Barr, yes.
And traditionally, that has come, and people can find it perhaps from many sources, but traditionally that has come from religion, which our founders believed was the foundation of our republic.
Except that they believe that it should be strictly separated from our republic.
We have to stop.
So yes, the
policies
opposite
that
is true.
undermine religion or relegate religion out of the public square.
That's what separation of church.
But now I get to my job, which is safety. Without safety, you cannot have progress. You can't have a life, a decent life in a community. And, you know, this was struck home to me 30 years ago when I visited Trenton when I was Attorney General last time, and I went to a small barber shop in an African-American neighborhood.
What's a barber shop?
There were people there in their 60s and 70s, and they said, Mr. Barr, we're in our golden years, and we are living behind bars. Look down the street.
Were they standing behind you?
All the bars are on our windows, and the criminals run free on the street.
What were you doing on their windows?
Now, we've made a lot of progress since then. The crime rate has been cut in half.
I'm confused, guys.
And a big part of that has been improvement in policing.
And abortion.
And the progress we've made in policing. And yes, the progress that police departments have made in building relationships with the community. I think law enforcement has understood for a long time that there is distrust in the African American community toward the law enforcement system. And when you reflect on our history, you could understand why. Because for most of our history, just up until the last 60 years, the institutions in this country, the laws and the institutions were explicitly discriminatory. There was not equal protection of the law by law. And it's only been since Jim Crow that our laws have been changed to provide for equal justice. And what we've had really since, and so the civil rights effort up until that time was to tear down institutions. But I don't think now is the time to be tearing down our institutions, because we've been on a march for the last 50 years of reforming our institutions. And we don't need to tear them down. We have to be mature about this, and when we see problems...
We're gonna switch up, kids. Hold on. Give me a second here. We're gonna bring this over here.
Action. So I think that while we saw something very bad, it has helped perhaps galvanize the will of the country to bring good out of it.
Sorry about the volume adjustment. That's just the feeds, but Fox is doing a better job with the camera work.
That policemen are by and large, by overwhelming majority, good, decent people who care about their community and put their lives on the line for us, their neighbors. And we can't lose sight of the fact, and can't let this event obscure the fact that the real oppression and danger to our communities comes more from violent crime and lawlessness than it does from the police. Now, we've never had a president who's more committed to reforming law enforcement. And he's done that with the First Step Act and with the first police commission since Lyndon Johnson. And I'm very optimistic.
I didn't realize Barr was so
what
funny.
we're going to be able to do, given his leadership, but also given the leadership of our police forces, which around the country increasingly have become better and better led.
That might be it.
To addressing the issues that we saw in Minneapolis and completing the process of professionalizing policing in this country. And as the president
Marcy,
said,
I'm
we're working on a
unsure. It's
number of
supposed to be in
things
a
through
church.
the commission that he set up, and also through an executive order.
Oh, Jesse,
to propel
go away.
that process even faster.
Oh, good.
By
His
looking
mic
at
is
how
off, too.
we can encourage the
What kind of
adoption
idiot talks with his mic off?
Order and calling the left out over their push to defund the police. Trump countered.
I'm not doing that. I don't know. Sorry. Hold on. I'll prepare another browser. Give me a second. Okay, getting rid of Jesse, guys.
Where they'd go.
We're bailing. Here we go.
And you know that because at the top position, there's not going to be much leadership. There's not much leadership left. Instead,
Let's go back here.
It's through the commission that he set.
Okay. Going.
That
invest
message by
more
saying
energy and
America needs
resources
to
Okay,
invest
quiet, Jesse.
more money in police
and
training. Take a
recruiting
look.
and community engagement.
Radical
We have to
efforts to
respect our
defund,
police. We have to take
dismantle,
care of our
and
police. They're
disband
protecting
the
us. And
police. They want to
if
get
they're
rid of
allowed
the
to do their
police force.
job, they'll
Absolutely
do
want
it.
to
Sorry,
get rid of
guys.
that.
And that's what they do, and that's where they'd go.
That comes as we've got an
And
out of
you know
control
that
situation.
because
Okay.
at the top position,
All right, everything's
there's
falling
not going
apart
to be
now.
much leadership. There's not much leadership left.
You be quiet. Now let's see. We might have to go back to C-SPAN because Jesse might be cutting away for the 5 because
Seattle.
that's important.
Radical leftists have
We're
taken
going to report on Seattle.
of the police.
I'm in
The
Seattle.
de-gentrification
It's okay,
of
everyone. I'm
Seattle.
safe. I'm in my
Free
basement
college
bunker.
for
I'm just
all
inspecting
Washington
it.
State residents.
I'm expecting it maybe one and a half more times today. So don't worry about me. I'm safe. Let's go back to C-SPAN and see if we can pick up the feed here. Okay. This is why I was avoiding child protection. Who's been using my browser? Where's Kevin Lee Daughter? Here we go. Okay, live feed. Here he is right here. Let's bring him in. And the volume will be low again, guys. I'll try and adjust. So turn down your volume.
Many people across the country and across the great state of Texas are hurting right now due to the tragedy that occurred to George Floyd. And I just want to extend my condolences to the Floyd family and to the entire
Okay, that's
Texas
what I can do on
community,
volume.
because I know that you all live together, you work together, you play together, and you hurt together here in Texas. And so I want you to know that I feel that for you.
That is the Surgeon General.
The president asked me to give you a quick update on America's COVID-19 response.
He did?
Thanks to cooperation with state and local partners, we're making progress against the virus. We are.
Progress.
And towards a safe reopening. Through strong public and private partnerships, America has now done more than 20 million tests. And that number is a big number. It's not just about the number, it's also about how many of those tests are coming back positive. We have a positive rate under 6% nationally. And from a public health perspective, if we're under 10% positive, we're doing a good job. So there's a lot of challenges
2 million
out there,
cases.
but I want you all to know that we are moving in the right direction. The data shows that we are moving in the right direction as a nation. And this has happened in part thanks
in Texas,
to
this is
opening
what's
of over
happening.
500 community-based testing sites through the work of private sector partners in the United States Public Health Service, which I helped lead with Admiral Giroir. 70% of those sites are in CDC-designated vulnerable areas. That means that we're taking the testing to those who need it the most, to those who are most at risk. We also have testing at 92% of America's community health centers, which predominantly serve low-income areas and communities of color. We've helped equip our frontline workers, our healthcare heroes.
That's Texas, right there.
94 million N95
You are here.
149 million surgical masks, and more than 1 billion gloves. And a large proportion of those supplies that the president and the secretary
LA County's terrible,
are going
Rich.
to nursing homes.
I was thinking,
And
hey,
just
I
wanna-
should
see
go
the
home
governor
to
over there.
LA.
I want to
Nope.
give you all a shout out. Texas has led the way in nursing home testing. 100% of their nursing homes have been tested. They're leading the way in testing people in corrections facilities. Over 95% of people in corrections facilities have been tested. That is something you all should be tremendously proud of.
You know what else? Look at those numbers. Look at how that's got to be.
And these efforts have allowed states to proceed with a safe reopening while we work with states to monitor the incoming data. We know we're going to have clusters.
Steph, where's that?
While we respond
Are you
to
Michigan?
spikes, and we adjust policies as needed. But I want you to know The safe reopening is crucial for other areas in health too.
Probably,
We need
Santor.
Americans to be able to return to cancer screenings. My wife just finished cancer treatment. If she'd had to wait 6 months
I'm sorry.
to get her cancer screen, she might not be here today. We need people to get their surgeries. We need people to get their vaccinations. 4.2 million children are behind on vaccinations now because of the COVID closures.
If only
We
we
know
had
every
tested
1%
those first 6
increase in
weeks,
unemployment
none of this
equates
would be
to a
happening.
1.3% increase in suicides. 1.3% increase in suicides. So we want to reopen safely. We also have to remember that being shut down has health consequences beyond COVID.
This
We know
is a
that being
different
out of
unemployment
school
situation, by
is
the way,
bad
but
for your health. We need to get our kids back in school.
I'm not pro-suicide. Don't get me wrong.
I have a 15, a 14, and a 10-year-old, and so can you tell I've been saying that a lot? But we know
I
that
can appreciate
COVID-19 has a tragically disproportionate burden on communities of color. Black Americans hospitalized at 4.5 times higher rates than whites. Hospitalization rates 3.5 times higher for Hispanics than whites and 5 times higher for American Indians and Alaska Natives. The fact is this virus is exploiting and exacerbating pre-existing health disparities, and these disparate outcomes and opportunities for health are in part the anger, the frustration, and the fear that we're seeing manifest in protests around the country. And that's why it's important for people to know that beyond talking about the problems, the president's
I think
direction,
we're looking
the
at
Secretary
99%
Azar's direction,
upset
HHS
with
and the
police
White House
brutality,
Opportunity
and, like,
Revitalization Council are working,
down there,
are focusing resources
I'm
on
really upset
minority
about
communities.
COVID.
HHS recently allocated $15 billion to Medicaid providers and $10 billion to safety net hospitals, both groups of providers that disproportionately serve Americans of color. And I spent the last 10 years working at a safety net hospital, Eskenazi Hospital in Indianapolis. I can tell you, those are the places that are doing the work. Those are the places that, at the president's direction, we're focusing our resources towards. We're working with the consortium of black medical schools to fund and scale local efforts in communities that, again, reach communities of color. CDC now requires all testing data reported by states include information on race, ethnicity, and zip code, so we can continue to further
Yeah, it took them
refine and
4
focus
months
our
to do
strategy
that.
on the hardest hit communities.
Took them 6 months to
CMS
get,
is
or 6
deregulating
weeks to get a
telemedicine
test.
to make ongoing care for many medical conditions safe, accessible, and convenient.
Yeah, he's
for
a
the
doctor.
patients and for healthcare professionals. Again, we can't afford to let people continue to go without their care. And the administration's emphasis on public-private partnerships is allowing us to progress towards a vaccine and treatments at a record pace as a part of Operation Warp Speed. I want to add that SAMHSA just funded 3 community behavioral health clinics right here in Texas with the CARES Act funding. Some of your congressional representatives are here. I want to say thank you to you all for passing that into the president for signing it to address COVID-19 and behavioral health needs. These facilities integrate mental health, substance abuse treatment, and physical health care in one setting and provide 24/7 crisis intervention services. Another notable mental health awareness training grant is in Austin, where funds are used to train community health officials, including law enforcement, and we have many of them in the crowd today, on recognizing signs and symptoms of mental illness and mental health crises and how to help an individual who's struggling. That's all part of reform. That's all part of reform in the positive direction, giving our frontline workers the tools and the training they need to be able to take care of these difficult situations. As Mayor Sylvester Turner said at George Floyd's funeral, we must encourage business leaders to invest in our underserved communities, and that's what the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council is all about. I have an upcoming Surgeon General's report on community health and economic prosperity, which aims to mobilize businesses to invest deeply and over time in the health of their communities. Finally, to focus on chronic conditions that disproportionately impact Black and brown people and may worsen because of COVID, Secretary Azar has instructed my office to accelerate the release of 2 calls to action, the first on maternal health, addressing the fact that women of color suffer more complications and a much higher risk of dying around childbirth. Black women are 4 to 5 times more likely to die around childbirth than white women. Native American women are more likely to die around childbirth than white women. And that's after you control for income, after you control for education, after you control for every known factor that we have. My second call to action is on hypertension control for all Americans. Hypertension is common, it's costly, and it's treatable, and yet control rates are low and stalled, especially in communities of color. So I just want to close by saying that as
Yeah,
we
that's
reopen,
Jerome
the
Adams,
basic
guys.
public health
I
recommendations
might-
we've emphasized remain important. We've flattened the curve, but that doesn't mean that COVID has gone away, that it's any less contagious, that it's any less deadly to vulnerable communities. So if you don't want to listen to me, listen to Hall of Fame pitcher Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan filmed a PSA at the governor's direction, and he said, number one, wash your hands. Wash them more than you've ever washed them before in your life. Number two, follow your local and state guidelines around social distancing. This virus likes to spread person to person. So the more we can keep distance between people, especially
Centaur, he
people we
hasn't
don't
taken
know,
any questions
the
since
harder
last
it is
month.
for this virus to transmit. And number three, this isn't me speaking, this is Nolan Ryan, Hall of Fame pitcher here. When you're in a public
You know,
place where it's difficult
honestly,
to keep a
I mean, I'm a
distance,
fan of
like
Nolan,
an
but I'd
ocean or
rather take
pharmacy,
advice from the doctor.
The CDC recommends wearing a face covering to protect
But you
your
know what?
neighbors
That's
in the
America,
event that
isn't it?
you
In a
have
nutshell.
COVID and you don't know it.
The Surgeon
50% of
General
people
has
who
to
have
tell
COVID are
people that
asymptomatic.
Nolan Ryan
So
says.
thanks to the hard work of so many healthcare and public health professionals and the commitment of the American people,
We're all
I
gonna
wanna reiterate,
die.
because you don't hear this enough, that we are making huge progress in the fight against COVID-19. And as a member of the task force, I
Yeah,
can
let's
tell
put
you
the
that we
high-risk group
frequently
and
talk
sit 'em all
about
together
what great
over
work
there on the
Texas
side.
has been doing up until this point to keep the people of Texas safe, to keep the most vulnerable members of their community safe. And with every American's help, with your help, Texas, we'll keep making progress. We're going to beat this virus. And thank you for the opportunity, Mr. President. Thank you, Texas.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to have to cut away here in a few minutes because there's important calls to make. And then I'll come back later and finish this up. So this is all sort of
Mr. President,
this is all sort of impromptu. Oh, here's
I don't
Ben Carson to put us to sleep.
end up to all the criticism you get every day. 24.
They're applauding for the criticism of Trump.
Do we have a joke?
Thank you.
You know, our nation is continuing a path of renewal and recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. But since the beginning, the President has talked about being a champion for the forgotten men and women of this nation. That's exactly where we've been concentrating. And it's been an honor to serve in an administration with that goal. And I'm excited to see America beginning to bounce back. The infrastructure, the economic infrastructure of our country is very strong, secondary to the abolition of multitudinous regulations
awake.
and
I'm awake.
targeted tax cuts. It's
Okay.
still there. That foundation is there, and we will be able to get back on that track pretty quickly. But to help speed this rebound, the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council was formed to really help the long-forgotten communities achieve economic opportunity. And it has been refocused at your direction to help America's hardest-hit communities achieve economic recovery, overcome health disparities, and thrive through educational and workforce advancement. Now, to stimulate economic development and entrepreneurship, the Council has worked to set aside additional payment protection funding for our nation's low-income minority communities and provided technical support to help these communities to access this funding. They have stated that during
Okay, I can't do it anymore. I can't do Ben Carson anymore. So, guys, what I'm going to do is get off for a little while, and things got to be taken care of. And Kevin Lee's son and I might be going playing tennis now that the sun is out here in Seattle. So as long as we can get bring our all papers and get past the Antifa guards, we should be able to play tennis. I'm hoping. I've got some hot dogs as bribe money. And then I'll come back later in the day. Trump's going to be doing an interview on Fox News at 6 p.m. I will probably be on the court or in court in the new Antifa kangaroo court at that point. I'm not really sure. But I'll cover that probably delayed. This is live stream, everybody, not live stream. And I'll come back and cover this delayed as well because we don't need to hear Ben Carson at all. I probably all of them are going to speak at this point, and because Dear Bleacher loves to be praised. Okay, wave towards Paul. Oh, you're in Paulsville, JC? Hi. There, I'm waving towards Paulsville. Yeah. Oh, hey, you're very welcome, of course, everybody. Thanks to everybody. Big donors today, too. Green Room Bar coming in as an executive producer. New credits are up, and I'm going to show them in just a second here. And as well, Debbie re-upped, went from, I don't know, resistor, protester, whatever, up to producer. So Green Room Bar executive producer, EP, as they call it in the biz. And so you guys will be bringing further coverage today. And Rich, I swear to God, I'm going to do Billy Joel again at some point. I have Billy Joel. I have it up. I mean, I'm like looking at it in the background here somewhere. So we'll get rid of that. Oh, it's just nothing but Trump on Trump on Trump. I can't. All right, stream the tennis. Who's gonna? I'll tell you what. People are so desperate for sports right now. So for $5,000, I will stream the tennis matches between myself and Kevin Lee daughter and Kevin Lee son. But we invented a game called Faceball that's way better than tennis and way more exciting. And maybe if you're on Patreon, I might do like a private showing or something, because I know on Patreon you can have access to exclusive things. So maybe if you guys are interested, you can see this exciting new sport. It's actually really, really fun. Okay, guys. Yeah, maybe I will record the tennis. Who knows? Put it up on the Patreon later for all of my patrons. If you'd like to be a patron, please go to kevinleefather.com and you can subscribe to me on Patreon there. And if you want to support me otherwise through PayPal, paypal.me/KevinLeeDad. Dad, not father, on PayPal, because Kevin Lee father was taken. So I'm going to find that person and sick Antifa on him. All right, guys, that's the end of this. Here comes your credits, and I'll see you again soon.